All right, we are back. See, oh, there we go. And we are here for starting with record 26. The world does exist, rash 41 degrees centigrade. Morning through the ceiling, the sky is, as usual, firm, round, red cheeked. I think I should have been less surprised had I found above some extraordinary quadrangular sun, or people clad in many colored dresses made of the skins of animals, or opaque walls of stone. Then the world, our world, does exist still. Or is it only inertia? Is the generator already switched out while the armature is still roaring and revolving? Two more revolutions or three, and at the fourth it will die away? Are you familiar with that strange state in which you wake up in the middle of the night when you open your eyes into the darkness and then suddenly feel you are lost in the dark? You quickly begin to feel around, seeking in the Journal of the United States. Quickly, I found this. The celebration of the Day of Unanimity, long awaited by all, took place yesterday. The same well-doer who so often has proved his unshakable wisdom was unanimously re-elected for the 48th time. The celebration was clouded by a little confusion created by the enemies of happiness, who by their action naturally lost the right to be the bricks for the foundation of the renovated United States. It is clear to everyone that to take their votes into account would mean to consider as a part of a magnificent, heroic symphony the accidental cough of a sick person who happened to be in the concert hall. O great sage, is it really true that despite everything we are saved? What objection indeed can one find to this most crystalline syllogism? And further on, a few more lines. Today at 12 o'clock, a joint meeting of the Administrative Bureau, Medical Bureau, and Bureau of Guardians will take place. An important state decree is to be expected momentarily. No, the walls will stand erect. Here they are. I can feel them. And that strange feeling of being lost somewhere, of not knowing where I am, that feeling is gone. I am no longer surprised to see the sky blue and the sun round and all the numbers going to work as usual. I walked along the avenue with a particularly firm, resounding step. It seemed to me that everyone else walked exactly like me. But at the crossing, on turning the corner, I noticed people strangely shying away, going around the corner of a building sidewise, as if a pipe had burst in the wall, as if cold water were spurting like a fountain on the sidewalk, and it was impossible to cross it. Another 5 or 10 steps, and I too felt a spurt of cold water that struck me and threw me from the sidewalk. At a height of approximately 2 meters, a quadrangular piece of paper was pasted to the wall, and on that sheet of paper, unintelligible, poisonously green letters, Mephi. And under the paper, an S like curved back and wing ears, shaking with anger or emotion. With right arm lifted as high as possible, his left arm hopelessly stretched out backward like a hurt wing. He was trying to jump high enough to reach the paper and tear it off, but he was unable to do so. He was a fraction of an inch too short. Probably every one of the passers-by had the same thought. If I go to help him, I, only one of the many, will he not think that I am guilty of something and that I am therefore anxious too? I must confess I had that thought, but remembering how many times he had proved my real guardian angel and how often he had saved me, I stepped toward him, and with courage and warm assurance, I stretched out my hand and tore off the sheet. S turned around. The little drill sank quickly into me to the bottom and found something there. Then he lifted his left brow and winked toward the wall where Mephi had been hanging a minute ago. The tail of his little smile even twinkled with a certain pleasure which greatly surprised me. But why should I be surprised? A doctor always prefers a temperature of 40 degrees Celsius and a rash to the slow, languid rise of the temperature during the incubation period of disease. It enables him to determine the character of the disease. Today, Mephi broke out on the walls like a rash. I understood his smile. In the passage to the Underground Railway, under our feet, on the clean glass of the steps, again a white sheet, Mephi, and also on the walls of the tunnel and on the benches, and on the mirror of the car, apparently pasted on in haste as some were hanging on a slant. Everywhere the same white, gruesome rash. I must confess that the exact meaning of that smile became clear to me only after many days, which were overfilled with the strangest and most unexpected events. The roaring of the wheels, distinct in the general silence, seemed to be the noise of infected streams of blood. Some number was inadvertently touched on the shoulder, and he started to, so that a package of papers fell out of his hands. To my left, another number was reading a paper, his eyes fixed always on the same line. The paper perceptibly trembled in his hands. I felt that everywhere in the wheels and in the hands, in the newspapers, even in the eyelashes, the pulse was becoming more and more rapid, and I thought it probable that today, when I 330 and I found ourselves there, the temperature would rise to 39 degrees Celsius, 40, perhaps 41, and at the docks, the same silence filled with the buzzing of an invisible propeller. The lathes were silent as if brooding. Only the cranes were moving almost inaudibly, as if on tiptoe, gliding, bending over, picking up with their tentacles the lumps of frozen air and loading the tanks of the Integral. We are already preparing the Integral for a trial flight. Well, shall we have her up in a week? This was my question addressed to the second builder. His face is like porcelain, painted with sweet blue and tender little pink flowers, eyes and lips. But today those little flowers looked faded and washed out. We were counting aloud when suddenly I broke off in the midst of a word and stopped my mouth wide open. Above the cupola, above the blue lump lifted by the crane, there was a scarcely noticeable small white square. I felt my whole body trembling, perhaps with laughter. Yes, I myself heard my own laughter. Did you ever hear your own laughter? No, listen, I said. Imagine you are in an ancient airplane, sorry. Imagine you are in an ancient airplane. The altimeter shows 5,000 meters. A wing breaks. You are dashing down and on the way you calculate tomorrow from 12 to 2, from 2 to 6, and dinner at 5. Would it not be absurd? The little blue flowers began to move and bulge out. What if I were made of glass and he could have seen what was going on within me at that moment? If he knew that some 3 or 4 hours later, Record 27, no headings. It is impossible. I was alone in the endless corridors. In those same corridors, a mute concrete sky. Water was dripping somewhere upon a stone. The familiar, heavy, opaque door, and this subdued noise from behind it. She said she would come out at 16 sharp. It was already 5 minutes, then 10, then 15 past 16. No one appeared. For a second, I was my former self, horrified at the thought that the door might open. 5 minutes more, and if she does not come out, water was dripping somewhere upon a stone, no one about. With melancholy pleasure, I felt saved, and slowly I turned and walked back along the corridor. The trembling dots of the small lamps on the ceiling became dimmer and dimmer. Suddenly, a quick rattle of a door behind me, quick steps, softly echoing from the ceiling and the walls. It was she, light as a bird, panting somewhat from running. I knew you would be here. You would come. I knew you. The spears of her eyelashes moved apart to let me in, and how can I describe what effect that ancient, absurd, and wonderful rite has upon me when her lips touch mine? Can I find a formula to express that whirlwind which sweeps out of my soul everything, everything save her? Yes, yes, from my soul. You may at me if you will. She made an effort to raise her eyelids, and her slow words too came with an effort. No, now we must go. The door opened, old worn steps, an unbearably multicolored noise, whistling and light. 24 hours have passed since then, and everything seems to have settled in me. Yet it is most difficult for me to find words for even an approximate description. It is as though a bomb had exploded in my head. Open mouths, wings, shouts, leaves, words, stones, all these one after another in a heap. I remember my first thought was fast back, for it was clear to me that while I was waiting there in the corridors, they somehow had blasted and destroyed the green wall, and from behind it everything rushed in and splashed over our city. which until then had been kept clean of that lower world. I must have said something of this sort to I 330. She laughed. No, we have simply come out beyond the green wall. Then I opened my eyes, and close to me, actually, I saw those very things which until then not a single living number had ever seen except depreciated 1,000 times, dimmed and hazy through the cloudy glass of the wall. The sun, it was no longer our light evenly diffused over the mirror surface of the pavements. It seemed an accumulation of living fragments, in incessantly oscillating dizzy spots which blinded the eyes, and the trees like candles rising into the very sky, or like spiders that squatted upon the earth, supported by their clumsy paws, or like mute green fountains, and all this was moving, jumping, rustling. Under my feet, some strange little ball was crawling. I stood as though rooted to the ground. I was unable to take a step because under my foot there was not an even plane. But imagine something disgustingly soft, yielding, living, springy green. I was dazed. I was strangled. Yes, strangled. It is the best word to express my state. I stood holding fast with both hands to a swinging branch. It is nothing. It is all right. It is natural the first time. It will pass. Courage. At I 330's side, bouncing dizzily on a green net, someone's thinnest profile cut out of paper. No, not someone's. I recognized him. I remembered. It was the doctor. I understood everything very clearly. I realized that they both caught me beneath the arm and laughingly dragged me forward. My legs twisted and glided, terrible noise, cawing, stumps, yelling, branches, tree trunks, wings, leaves, whistling. The trees drew apart, a bright clearing. In the clearing, people, or perhaps to be more exact, beings. Now comes the most difficult part to describe, for this was beyond any bounds of probability. It is clear to me now why I 330 was stubbornly silent about it before. I would not have believed it, would not have believed even her. It is even possible that tomorrow I shall not believe myself, shall not believe my own description in these pages. In the clearing around a naked, skull like rock, a noisy crowd of 3 or 4 hundred people. Well, let's call them people. I find it difficult to coin new words. Just as on the stands you recognize in the general accumulation of faces only those which are familiar to you. So at first I recognized only our grayish blue unifs. But 1 second later, and I just saw distinctly and clearly among the units dark red, golden black, brown, and white humans. Apparently, they were humans. None of them had any clothes on, and their bodies were covered with short, glistening hair, like that which may be seen on the stuffed horse in the prehistoric museum. But their females had faces, exactly, yes, exactly like the faces of our women, tender, rosy, and not overgrown with hair. Also, their breasts were free of hair, firm breasts of wonderful geometrical form. As to the males, only a part of their faces were free from hair, like our ancestors, and the organs of reproduction were similar to ours. All this was so unbelievable, so unexpected, that I stood there quietly. I assert positively that I stood quietly and looked around like a scale, overload one side sufficiently, and then you may gently put on the other as much as you will. The arrow will not move. Suddenly I felt alone. I 330 was no longer with me. I don't know how or where she disappeared. Around me weren't only those with their hair glistening like silk in the sunlight. I caught someone's warm, strong, dark shoulder. Listen, please, in the name of the well-doer, could you tell me where she went? A minute ago, long-haired, austere eyebrows turned to me. Shh, shh, silence. He made a sign with his head toward the center of the clearing where there stood the yellow skull like stone. There above the heads of all I saw her. The sun beat straight into my eyes, and because of that she seemed coal black standing out on the blue cloth of the sky, a coal black silhouette on a blue black background. A little higher, the clouds were floating, and it seemed that not the clouds, but the rock itself, and she herself upon that rock, and the crowd and the clearing, all were silently floating like a ship, and the earth was light and glided away from under the feet. Brothers, it was she. Brothers, you all know that there inside the wall in the city, they are building the integral. And you know also that the day has come for us to destroy that wall and all other walls, so that the green wind may blow over all the earth from end to end. But the integral is going to take these walls up into the heights to the thousands of other worlds which every evening whisper to us with their lights through the black leaves of night. Waves and foam and wind were beating the rock. Down with the integral, down. No, brothers, not down. The integral must be ours, and it shall be ours. On the day when it first sets sail into the sky, we shall be on board, for the builder of the integral is with us. He left the walls. He came with me here in order to be with us. Long live the builder. A second, and I was somewhere above everything. Under me, heads, wide open, yelling mouths, arms rising and falling. There was something strange and intoxicating in it all. I felt myself above everybody. I, a separate world. I ceased to be the usual item. I became unity. Again, I was below, near the rock, my body happy, shaken, and rumpled as after an embrace of love, sunlight voices, and from above the smiles of I 330, a golden haired woman, her whole body silky golden and diffusing an odor of different herbs, was nearby. She held a cup apparently made of wood. She drank a little from it with her red lips, and then offered the cup to me. I closed my eyes and eagerly drank the sweet, cold, prickly sparks, pouring them down on the fire which burned within me. Soon afterward, my blood and the whole world began to circulate 1,000 times faster. The earth seemed to be flying, light as dawn, and within me everything was simple, light, and clear. Only then I noticed on the rock the familiar enormous letters, Methi, and for some reason the inscription seemed to me necessary. It seemed to be a simple thread binding everything together, a rather rough picture hewn in the rock. This too seemed comprehensible. It represented a youth with wings and a transparent body, and in the place ordinarily occupied by the heart, a blinding, red, blazing coal. Again, I understood that coal, or no, I felt it as I felt without hearing every word of I 330's. She continued to speak from above from the rock, and I felt that all of them breathed one breath, and that they were all ready to fly somewhere like the birds over the wall. From behind, from the confusion of breathing bodies, a loud voice, but this is folly. It seems to me it was I, yes, I am certain it was I who then jumped on the rock. From there, I saw the sun, the heads, a green sea on a blue background, and I cried, yes, yes, precisely. All must become insane. We must become insane as soon as possible. We must, I know it. I 330 was at my side, her smile two dark lines from the angles of her mouth directed upward, and within me a blazing coal. It was momentary, light, and a little painful, beautiful, and later only stray fragments that remained sticking in me. Very low and slowly a bird was moving. I saw it was living, like me. It was turning its head now to the right and then to the left like a human being, and its round black eyes drilled themselves into me. Then a human back glistening with fur the color of ancient ivory, a mosquito crawling on that back, a mosquito with tiny transparent wings. The back twitched to chase the mosquito away. It twitched again. And yet another thing, a shadow from the leaves, a woven, net like shadow. Some humans lay in that shadow, chewing something, something similar to the legendary food of the ancients, a long yellow fruit and a piece of something dark. They put some of it in my hand, and it seemed strange to me, for I did not know whether I might eat it or not. And again, a crowd, heads, legs, arms, mouths, faces, appearing for a second and disappearing like bursting bubbles. For a second, or perhaps it was only a hallucination, the transparent flying wings' ears appeared. With all my might, I pressed the hand of I 330. She turned to me. What is the matter? He is here, I thought. Who? S. A second ago in the crowd. The ends of the thin, coal black brows moved to the temples, a smile like a sharp triangle. I could not see clearly why she smiled. How could she smile? But you understand, I 330, don't you? You understand what it means if he or one of them is here. You are funny. How could it ever enter the heads of those within the wall that we are here? Remember, take yourself. Did you ever think it was possible? They are busy hunting us there. Let them. You are delirious. Her smile was light and cheerful, and I too was smiling. The earth was drunken, cheerful, light, floating. Record 28, both of them, entropy and energy, the opaque part of the body. If your world is similar to the world of the ancients, then you may easily imagine that one day you suddenly come upon a sixth or a seventh continent, upon some Atlantis, and you find there unheard of cities, labyrinths, people flying through the air without the aid of wings or arrows, stones lifted into the air by the power of a gaze. In brief, imagine that you see things that cannot come to your mind even if you suffer from dream sickness. That is how I feel now. For you must understand that no one has ever gone beyond the Green Wall since the 200 Years' War, as I have already told you. I know it is my duty to you, my unknown friends, to give more details about that unsuspected strange world which is open to me since yesterday. But for the time being, I am unable to return to that subject. Everything is so novel it is like a rainstorm, and I am not big enough to embrace it all. I spread out the folds of my unif, my palms, and yet pailfuls splash past me, and only drops can reach these pages. At first, I heard behind the door, a loud voice, recognized her voice, the voice of I-330 tense, metallic, and another one, almost inflexible, like a wooden ruler, the voice of Hugh. Then the door burst open with a crack, and both of them shot into the room. Shot is the right word. I-330 put her hand on the back of my armchair and smiled over her shoulder, but only with her teeth at you. I should not care to stand before such a smile. Listen, she said to me, this woman seems to have made it her business to guard you from me like a little child. Is it with your permission? But he is a child. Yes, that is why he does not notice that is only in order, that all this is only a foul game. Yes, and it is my duty. For a second in the mirror, the broken, trembling line of brows, I leaped, controlling with difficulty the other self within me, the one with the hairy fists. With difficulty pushing every word through my teeth, I cried straight into her face, into her very gills, get out of here at once. Out at once. The gills swelled at first into brick red lumps, then fell and became gray. She opened her mouth to say something, but without a word, she slammed it shut and went out. I threw myself toward I-330. Never, never will I forgive myself. She dared. But you don't think, do that she, this is all because she wants to register on me, fortunately, she will not have time for that now. Besides, even 1,000 like her, I don't care. I know you will not believe that 1,000, but only me. For after all that happened yesterday, I am all yours, all to the very end, as you wanted it. I am in your hands. You can now, at any moment. What? At any moment? But immediately I understood what. The blood rushed to my ears and cheeks. Don't speak about that. You must never speak about that. The other, I, my formal self. But now, how do I know? Man is like a novel. Up to the last page, one does not know what the end will be. It would not be worth reading otherwise. She was stroking my head. I could not see her face, but I could tell by her voice that she was looking somewhere far into the distance. She had hooked herself onto that cloud which was floating silently, slowly, no one knows where to. Suddenly she pushed me away with her hand, firmly but tenderly. Listen, I came to tell you that perhaps we are now our last days. You know, don't you, that all auditoriums are to be closed after tonight? Closed? Yes, I passed by and saw that in all auditoriums, preparations are going on, tables, medics, all in white. But what does it all mean? I don't know. Nobody knows as yet. That's the worst of it. I feel only that the current is on. The spark is jumping, and if not today, then tomorrow. Yet perhaps they will not have time. It has been a long while since I ceased to understand who they are and who we are. I do not understand what I want. Do I want them to have or not to have enough time? One thing is clear to me. I-330 is now on the very edge, and in 1 second more. But it is folly, I said. You versus the United States. It's the same as if you were to cover the muzzle of a gun with your hands and expect that way to prevent the shot. It is absolute folly. A smile. We must all go insane as soon as possible. Go insane. It was yesterday. Do you remember? Yes, she was right. I had even written it down. Consequently, it really had taken place. In silence, I looked into her face. At that moment, the dark cross was especially distinct. Ay, dear, before it is too late, if you want, I'll leave everything. I'll forget everything, and we'll go there beyond the wall to them. I do not even know who they are. She shook her head. Through the dark windows of her eyes, I saw within her a flaming oven, sparks, tongues of flame, and above them a heap of dry wood. It was clear to me that it was too late. My words could be of no avail. She stood up. She would soon leave. Perhaps these were the last days or the last minutes. I grasped her hand. No, stay a little while longer, for the sake, for the sake. She slowly lifted my hand toward the light, my hairy paw, which I detest. I wanted to withdraw it, but she held it tightly. Your hand. You undoubtedly don't know, and very few do know, that women from here occasionally used to fall in love with them. Probably there are in you a few drops of that blood of the sun and the woods. Perhaps that is why I. Silence. It was so strange that because of that silence, because of an emptiness, because of a nothing, my heart should beat so wildly. I cried, Ah, you shall not go yet. You shall not go until you tell me about them, for you love them, and I don't even know who they are nor where they come from. Where are they? The half we have lost, H2 and O2 halves. But in order to get water, H2O, creeks, seas, waterfalls, storms, those two halves must be united. I distinctly remember every moment of hers. I remember she picked up a glass triangle from my table, and while talking, she pressed its sharp edge against her cheek. A white scar would appear. Then it would fill again and become pink and disappear. And it is strange that I cannot remember her words, especially the beginning of the story. I remember only different images and colors. At first, I remember she told me about the 200 Years' War. Red color on the green of the grass, on the dark clay, on the pale blue of the snow, everywhere red ditches that would not become dry. Then yellow, yellow grass burned by the sun, yellow, naked, wild men and wild dogs side by side, near swollen cadavers of dogs or perhaps of men. All this certainly beyond the walls, for the city was already the victor, and it already possessed our present day petroleum food. And at night, down from the sky, heavy black folds, the folds would swing over the woods, the villages, blackish red, slow columns of smoke, a dull moaning, endless strings of people driven into the city to be saved by force and to be whipped into happiness. You knew almost all this, yes, almost, but you did not know, and only a few did, that a small part of them remained together and stayed to live beyond the wall. Being naked, they went into the woods. They learned there from the trees, beasts, birds, flowers, and sun. Hair soon grew over their bodies, but under that hair they preserved their warm red blood. With you, it was worse. Numbers covered your bodies. Numbers crawled over you like lice. One ought to strip you of everything, and naked you ought to be driven into the woods. You ought to learn how to tremble with fear, with joy, with wild anger, with cold. You should pray to fire. And we, Mephi, we want. Wait a minute. Mephi. What does that mean? Mephi, it is Mephisto. You remember there on the rock the figure of the youth? Or no, I shall explain it to you in your own language, and you will understand better. There are two forces in the world, entropy and energy. One leads into blessed quietude, to happy equilibrium, the other to the destruction of equilibrium, to torturingly perpetual motion. Our, or rather your ancestors, the Christians, worshipped entropy like a god. But we are not Christians. At that moment, a slight whisper was suddenly heard, a knock at the door, and in rushed that flattened man with the forehead low over his eyes, who several times had brought me notes from I 330. He ran straight to us, stopped, panting like an air pump, and could say not a word, as he must have been running at top speed. But tell me, what has happened? I 330 grasped him by the hand. They are coming here, panted the air pump, with guards, and with them That that what's his name? The hunchback. S? Yes, they are in the house by this time. They'll soon be here. Quick, quick. Nonsense. We have time. I 330 was laughing, cheerful sparks in her eyes. It was either absurd, senseless courage, or else there was something I did not understand. I, dear, for the sake of the well doer, you must understand that this, for the sake of the well doer, the sharp triangle smile. Well, well, for my sake, I implore you. Oh, yes, I wanted to talk to you about some other matters. Well, never mind. We'll talk about them tomorrow. And cheerfully, yes, cheerfully, she nodded to me. The other came out for a second from under his forehead's awning and nodded also. I was alone. Quick, to my desk. I opened this manuscript and took up my pen so they should find me at this work, which is for the benefit of the United States. Suddenly, I felt every hair on my head living, separated, moving. What if they should read even one page of these most recently written? Motionless, I sat at the table, but everything around me seemed to be moving, as if the less than microscopic movements of the atoms had suddenly been magnified millions of times. I saw the walls trembling, my pen trembling, and the letters swinging and fusing together to hide them. But where? Glass all around, to burn them, but they would notice the fire through the corridor and in the neighboring room. Besides, I felt unable, I felt too weak to destroy this torturing and perhaps dearest piece of my own self. Voices from a distance, from the corridor, and steps. I had time only to snatch a handful of pages and put them under me, and then, as if soldered to the armchair, every atom of which was quivering, I remained sitting while the floor under my feet rolled like the deck of a ship up and down, all shrunk together and hidden under the awning of my own forehead, like that messenger. I watched them stealthily. They were going from room to room, beginning at the right end of the corridor. Nearer, nearer. I saw that some sat in their rooms, torpid like me. Others would jump up and open their doors wide, lucky ones. If only I, too, could. The well doer is the most perfect fumigation humanity needs. Consequently, no peristalsis, peristalsis in the organism of the United States could. I was writing this nonsense, pressing my trembling pen hard, and lower my head bent over the table, and within me some sort of crazy forge. With my back, I was listening. And I heard the click of the doorknob, a current of fresh air. My armchair was dancing a mad dance. Only then, and even then, with difficulty, I tore myself away from the page and turned my head in the direction of the newcomers. How difficult it is to play a foul game. In front of all was S, morose, silent, his eyes swiftly drilling deep shafts within me, within my armchair, and within the pages which were twitching in my hands. Then, for a second, familiar, everyday faces at the door. One of them separated itself from the rest with its bulging, pinkish brown gills. At once I recalled everything that had happened in the same room half an hour ago, and it was clear to me that they would presently. All my being was shriveling and pulsating in that fortunately opaque part of my body with which I was covering the manuscript. You came up to S, gently plucked his sleeve, and said in a low voice, "This is D503, the builder of the integral. You have probably heard of him. He is always like that, at his desk, does not spare himself at all." And I thought, what a dear, wonderful woman. S slid up to me, bent over my shoulder toward the table. I covered the lines I had written with my elbow, but he shouted severely, "Show us at once what you have there, please." Dying with shame, I held out the sheet of paper. He read it over, and I noticed a tiny smile jump out of his eyes, scamper down his face, and slightly wagging its tail, perch upon the right angle of his mouth. Somewhat ambiguous yet. Well, you may continue. We shall not disturb you any further. He went splashing toward the door as if in a ditch of water, and with every step of his, I felt coming back to my legs, my arms, my fingers. My soul again distributed itself evenly throughout my whole body. I breathed. The last thing you lingered in my room to come back to me and say right in my ear in a whisper, "It is lucky for you that I did not understand." What did she mean by that? The same evening, I learned that they had led away three numbers, although nobody speaks aloud about it or about anything that happened. This ostensible silence is due to the educational influence of the guardians, who are ever present among us. Conversations deal chiefly with the quick fall of the barometer and the forthcoming change in the weather. Ugh. Ugh. Stretch my back. Record 29, threads on the face, sprouts, and unnatural compression. It is strange the barometer continues to fall, yet there is no wind. There is quiet. Above the storm, which we do not yet hear, has begun. The clouds are rushing with terrific speed. There are few of them as yet, separate fragments. It is as if above us an unknown city were being destroyed, and pieces of wall and towers were rushing down, coming nearer and nearer with tremendous speed. But it will take some days of rushing through the blue infinite before they reach the bottom that is us below. And below there is silence. There are thin, incomprehensible, almost invisible threads in the air. Every autumn they are brought here from beyond the wall. They float slowly and suddenly you feel something foreign and invisible on your face. You want to brush it off, but no, you cannot rid yourself of it. You feel it especially near the green wall where I was this morning. I 330 made an appointment with me to meet her in the ancient house in that apartment of ours. I was not far from the rust red, opaque mass of the ancient house when I heard behind me short, hasty steps and rapid breathing. I turned around and saw O90 trying to catch up to me. She seemed strangely and perfectly rounded. Her arms and breast, her whole body, so familiar to me, was rounded out, stretching her uniform. It seemed as though it would soon tear the thin cloth and come out into the sun, into the light. I think that there is in this green debris in springtime, the unseen sprouts try thus to tear their way through the ground in order to send forth their branches and leaves into bloom. For a few seconds, she stared into my face with her blue eyes in silence. I saw you on the day of unanimity. I saw you too. I at once remembered below in a narrow passage she had stood, pressing herself to the wall, protecting her abdomen with her arms. And automatically I now glanced at her abdomen, which rounded the unif. She must have noticed, for she became pink and with a rosy smile. I am so happy, so happy. I am so full of, you understand? I walk and I hear nothing around me, and all the while I listen within me. I was silent. Something foreign was shadowing my face, and I was unable to rid myself of it. Suddenly, all shining, light blue, she caught my hand. I felt her lips upon it. It was the first time in my life. It was some ancient caress as yet unknown to me. And I was so ashamed, and it pained me so much that I swiftly, I think even roughly, pulled my hand away. Listen, you are crazy, it seems. And anyway, what are you happy about? Is it possible that you forget what is ahead of you? If not now, then within a month or two? Her light went out, her roundness sagged and shrank, and in my heart, an unpleasant, even a painful compression mixed with pity. Our heart is nothing else than an ideal pump, a compression, i.e., a shrinking at the moment of pumping is a technical absurdity. Hence, it is clear how essentially absurd, unnatural, and pathological are all these loves and pities, etc., which create that compression. Silence. To the left, the cloudy green glass of the wall. And just ahead, the dark red mass. Those two colors combined gave me what I thought was a splendid idea. Wait, I know how to save you. I shall save you from to see one's own child for a few moments only, and to be sent and then be sent to death. No, you shall be able to bring it up. You shall watch it and see it grow in your arms and ripen like a fruit. Her body quivered, and she seemed to have chained herself to me. Do you remember that woman I 330, that of long ago, who during that walk? Well, she is now right here in the ancient house. Let us go to her, and I assure you that I shall arrange matters at once. I already pictured us, I 330 and I, leading O90 through the corridors, then how she would be brought amidst flowers, grass, and leaves. But O90 stepped back with the little horns of her rosy crescent trembling and bending downward. Is she that same one? She asked. That is, I was confused for some reason. Yes, of course, that very same. And you want me to go to her and to ask her to Don't you ever dare to say another word about it. Leaning over, she walked away. Then, as if she had remembered something, she turned around and cried, I shall die, all right? And it's none of your business. What do you care? Silence. From above, pieces of blue towers and walls were falling downward with terrific speed. They will have perhaps hours or days to fly through the infinite. Unseen threads were slowly floating through the air, planting themselves upon my face, and it was impossible to brush them off, impossible to rid myself of them. I walked slowly toward the ancient house, and in my heart I felt that absurd, tormenting compression. Hey, Beatrix just left, and the dogs are freaking out outside my office. So if y'all hear them, that is what is going on. We are not being burglarized. Record 30, the last number, Galileo's mistake. Would it not be better? Here is my conversation with I-330, which took place in the ancient house yesterday in the midst of loud noise, among colors which stifled the logical course of my thoughts, red, green, bronze, saffron yellow, orange colors, and all the while under the motionless marble smile of that snub-nosed ancient poet. I shall reproduce the conversation word for word, for it seems to me that it may have an enormous and decisive importance for the fate of the United States, more than that for the fate of the universe. Besides, in reading it, you, my unknown readers, may find some justification for me. I-330, without preliminaries, at once brought everything down upon my head. I know that the day after tomorrow, the first trial trip of the Integral is to take place. On that day, we shall take possession of it. What? Day after tomorrow? Yes, sit down and don't be upset. We cannot afford to lose a minute. Among the hundreds who were arrested yesterday, there are 20 Memphis. To let 2 or 3 days pass means that they will perish. I was silent. As observers on the trial trip, they will send electricians, mechanics, physicians, meteorologists, etc. At 12 sharp, you must remember this. When the bell rings for dinner, we shall remain in the passage, lock them all up in the dining hall, and the Integral will be ours. You realize that it is essential, happen what may. The Integral in our hands will be a tool that will help to put an end to everything at once without pain. Their arrows, bah, they would be insignificant mosquitoes against a buzzard. And then, if it proves inevitable, we may direct the tubes of the motors downwards. And by their work alone, I jumped up. It is inconceivable. It is absurd. Is it not clear to you that what you are planning is a revolution? Absurd because a revolution is impossible. Because I speak for myself and for you, our revolution was the last one. No other revolutions may occur. Everybody knows that. A mocking sharp triangle of brows. My dear, you are a mathematician, are you not? More than that, a philosopher mathematician. Well, then name the last number. What is I cannot understand. Which last? The last one, the highest, the largest. But I-330, that's absurd. Since the number of numbers is infinite, how can there be a last one? And why then do you think there is a last revolution? Their number is infinite. The last one is a child's story. Children are afraid of the infinite, and it is necessary that children should not be frightened, so that they may sleep through the night. But what is the use? What is the use of it all? For the sake of the well-doer, what is the use since all of us are already happy, are happy already? Excuse me. All right. Even suppose that is so. And then what? How funny. A pure childish question. You tell a story to children, come to the very end, and they will invariably ask you, and then what? And what for? And then nothing. Period. In the whole world, evenly, everywhere, there is distributed. Ah, evenly, everywhere. That is the point. Entropy. Psychological entropy. Don't you, as a mathematician, know that only differences in temperature, only thermic contrast make for life? And if all over the world there are evenly warm or evenly cold bodies, they must be pushed off in order to get flame explosions, and we shall push. But I-330, please realize that our ancestors during the 200 Years' War did exactly that. Oh, they were right, 1,000 times right, but they did one thing wrong. Later, they began to believe that they were the last number, a number that does not exist in nature. Their mistake was the mistake of Galileo. He was right in that the earth revolves around the sun, but he did not know that our whole solar system revolves around some other center. He did not know that the real, not relative orbit of the earth is not a naive circle. And you, the Mephi, we, for the time being, we know that there is no last number. We may forget that someday. Of course, we shall certainly forget it when we grow old, as everything inevitably grows old. Then we shall inevitably fall like autumn leaves from the trees, like you the day after tomorrow. No, no, dear, not you personally. You are with us, aren't you? You are with us. Flaming, stormy, sparkling. I never before had seen her in such a state. She embraced me with her whole self, and my self disappeared. Her last word, looking steadily, deeply into my eyes, then do not forget, at 12 o'clock sharp. And I answered, yes, I remember. She left. I was alone amidst a rebellious, multi voiced commotion of blue, red, green, saffron, yellow, and orange. Yes, at 12. Suddenly, a feeling of something foreign on my face, of something implanted that could not be brushed off. Suddenly, yesterday morning, and you and all, she had shouted into the face of I 330. Why, how absurd. I hastened to get out of the house and home, home. Somewhere behind me, I heard the chattering of the birds beyond the wall. Shit, shit, hitting the wrong way. Shit. And ahead of me in the setting sun, the balls of cupolas made of red, crystallized fire, enormous flaming cubes, houses, and the sharp point of the accumulating tower, high in the sky like a paralyzed streak of lightning. And all this impeccable, most geometric beauty, shall I myself, with my own hands. Is there no way out, no path, no trail? I passed by an auditorium. I do not recall its number. Inside, the benches were stacked along the walls. In the middle, tables covered with snow white glass sheets, with pink stains of sunny blood on the white. There was foreshadowed in all that some unknown and therefore alarming tomorrow. It is unnatural for a thinking and seeing human being to live among irregularities, excuse me, unknowns, X's. If suddenly your eyes were covered with a bandage and you were left to feel around to stumble, ever aware that somewhere very close to you there was a borderline, and one step only, and nothing but a compressed, smothered piece of flesh would be left to you. I now feel somewhat like that. And what if, without waiting for anything, I should just head down? Would it not be the only correct thing to do to disentangle everything at once? All right, there we are. It's 26 through 30. Don't forget, TommySalmons.com and ScottHortonAcademy.com. So that's it for this week. We will be back reading it next week, and I might have another episode just like I did last week and this week. Uh, Actually, I will, because we will be doing the third debate from 1992 presidential, the third presidential debate. So there you have it.